If I told you that one harmless $1,200 upgrade could quietly cost you over $25,000 in the next decade, you would probably think I'm exaggerating. You'd say, it's just a phone. It's just a watch. It's just a renovation. But run the math carefully. Not emotionally, not socially. Just structurally. Take a $1,200 device upgrade. Now apply what I call the 10 rule correctly. The 10 rule doesn't mean everything literally becomes 10 times more expensive. It means that one visible upgrade tends to influence spending decisions across roughly 10 surrounding areas of your life over time. Not instantly. Not dramatically. But incrementally. Let's say that one $1,200 purchase quietly increases your annual lifestyle spending by just $2,500 through accessories, subscriptions, replacement cycles, higher-tier services, and alignment upgrades. $2,500 per year for 10 years. That's $25,000. And that doesn't include the opportunity cost if that money had been invested at 7%. The real long-term number would be significantly higher. The problem isn't the $1,200. The problem is the baseline shift. My name is Herbert, and today we're breaking down a force that's far more dangerous than impulse spending. We're breaking down what I call escalation pressure. The invisible force that quietly increases your cost of living without you ever consciously deciding to become more expensive. And once you see it clearly, you won't be able to ignore it again. Let's define the villain precisely. Escalation pressure is the psychological tension that appears when one part of your life upgrades and the rest doesn't match. Humans crave consistency. When something visible in your life improves dramatically, a luxury item, a high-status object, a premium experience, everything around it is reevaluated. If surrounding items feel below standard, tension forms. That tension demands correction. Correction costs money. Not because you're reckless, because you're wired for coherence. Let me anchor this with a new story. Meet Marcus. Marcus earns $82,000 a year. He lives reasonably. He drives a 7-year-old SUV that's fully paid off. He rents a comfortable apartment. He cooks most nights. He saves roughly 18% of his income. Financially stable. Not flashy. One year, Marcus receives a $9,000 performance bonus after tax. He decides to reward himself with something meaningful. He buys a $6,800 luxury mechanical watch. Not extreme, just elevated. At first, nothing dramatic happens. But subtle shifts begin. At work, he notices his scuffed shoes when he glances down at the watch. They suddenly feel inconsistent. He replaces them. $220. Then he buys 2 tailored shirts. $320. Then a better jacket. $400. He attends more upscale networking dinners because he feels the part. Dining expenses increase by roughly $120 per month. That's $1,440 per year. 6 months later, Marcus starts noticing his vehicle feels dated in comparison to his new professional identity. He doesn't need a new car, but he feels slightly misaligned. He trades in his SUV and finances a newer model. Payment increase, $310 per month. That's $3,720 per year. Insurance increases by $900 annually. Within 18 months, the original $6,800 purchase has quietly influenced $220, $320, $400, $1,440 annually, $3,720 annually, $900 annually. Over 3 years, that's well over $20,000 in lifestyle expansion connected directly to one visible anchor. The watch did not cost $6,800. It redefined Marcus's baseline. Here's where the identity angle becomes unavoidable. Marcus didn't just buy a timepiece. He updated his internal narrative. He shifted from competent employee to ascending executive. That identity shift is powerful. Because once you adopt a higher status internal narrative, maintaining that narrative becomes important. Not consciously, but consistently. You don't want signals in your environment contradicting your new identity. So you align. Gradually, systematically, and often expensively. You're not buying objects. You're defending coherence. Now zoom out and look at this structurally. Your life operates like a network of visible standards. Car, home, clothing, technology, vacations, social environments. These are not isolated purchases. They are signaling nodes. When one node upgrades significantly, it increases the pressure on surrounding nodes. Your brain doesn't say, spend more money. It says, restore consistency. That restoration process is escalation pressure, and it compounds. Let's apply the 10 rule to another example. You renovate your kitchen for $14,000. Beautiful cabinets. Modern finishes. At first, you feel satisfied. But now, the refrigerator looks outdated. The flooring feels cheap. The lighting feels dim. The paint color looks tired. The dining table feels worn. The bar stools don't match. The backsplash feels incomplete. The open-concept living room looks dated. The patio now feels inconsistent. Hosting expectations subtly rise. You may not address all 10 immediately, but over 5 years, you likely address at least half. If each of those adjustments averages $2,000, you're looking at another $10,000 to $20,000 over time. The kitchen didn't cost $14,000. It reset the environment. And resetting environments is expensive. Now here's where this becomes financially dangerous. Income tends to increase in linear increments. But lifestyle baseline expands in layers. Each anchor item becomes part of the new normal. Once normalized, it's difficult to reverse without emotional discomfort. You can downgrade income more easily than you can downgrade identity. That's the trap. High earners often feel financially stretched not because they overspend recklessly, but because their baseline has escalated quietly across dozens of categories. Mortgage sized for new standard. Vehicle sized for new standard. Social circles sized for new standard. Vacation sized for new standard. And now, income must maintain the ecosystem. The ecosystem is expensive to maintain and fragile to income disruption. Escalation pressure is subtle. It doesn't feel like extravagance. It feels like refinement. It feels like this makes sense. That's why it's powerful. No single decision looks catastrophic. But collectively, they raise your cost of existence. And once cost of existence rises, optionality shrinks. Financial stress increases not because you lack income, but because your baseline is structurally elevated. So how do you break the cycle without living in deprivation? The answer is controlled anchoring. Controlled anchoring means being intentional about which categories of your life you allow to become identity anchors. Some categories are high visibility amplifiers: car, primary residence, wardrobe, daily technology, vacation style. When these categories escalate significantly, they pull others upward. If you keep your visible anchors modest but high quality and durable, escalation pressure weakens dramatically. For example, drive a reliable but understated vehicle. Live slightly below what you technically qualify for. Wear clean, simple clothing rather than hyper-status items. When your anchors are calm, your ecosystem stabilizes. Stability protects margin. Margin protects freedom. Before any major purchase, run 3 structured questions. Is this an anchor item that influences identity? Which 10 surrounding areas could it pressure over time? Am I prepared for the ecosystem cost, not just the purchase price? If you can't clearly articulate the long-term ecosystem cost, pause. Not because you can't afford it, but because you may not want to afford the ripple. Here's another layer most people miss. Escalation pressure also raises maintenance expectations. Expensive car means higher insurance, premium fuel, specialized servicing. Luxury furniture means protective cleaning, replacement anxiety, restricted usage. High-end clothing means dry cleaning, cautious storage, higher replacement cost. You don't just buy more expensive things. You commit to more expensive maintenance cycles. And maintenance is recurring. Recurring costs compound quietly. Now let's revisit the opening math. $1,200 turning into $25,000 over a decade. It doesn't require dramatic overspending. It requires incremental adjustments averaging just a few $100s per month. Most people don't notice because adjustments are spaced out. 3 months here, 6 months there, 1 subscription, 1 upgrade, 1 alignment decision. Escalation pressure thrives on spacing. The time gap between decisions disguises the pattern. There's nothing inherently wrong with upgrading your life, but you must understand the structural implications. Every anchor item shifts your baseline. Every baseline shift increases maintenance cost. Every maintenance increase reduces optionality. And optionality, the ability to choose differently without financial strain, is the true definition of wealth. Not visible refinement, not curated environments. Optionality. The wealthiest individuals often appear understated not because they lack resources, but because they understand anchor dynamics. They keep visible anchors stable, They invest heavily in invisible assets, cash flow, equity, investments, skill development, network leverage. Those assets do not demand alignment spending. They expand optionality without escalating lifestyle pressure. That's structural intelligence. Escalation pressure is patient. It doesn't require urgency. It simply requires time. And time compounds baseline shifts, just like interest compounds capital. The question isn't whether you can afford the next upgrade. The question is whether you want to afford the ecosystem it creates. Because ecosystems are sticky. And sticky ecosystems demand stable income. Stable income demands consistent effort. Consistent effort reduces flexibility. And reduced flexibility increases stress. All from one anchor. Control your anchors. Stabilize your baseline. Preserve your margin. Because the quietest expenses are often the most expensive over time. And once you recognize escalation pressure operating in your life, you can finally decide which upgrades are intentional, and which ones are silently upgrading you into a more expensive version of yourself. What are your thoughts on escalation pressure? The silent force that keeps raising your cost of living without you ever consciously agreeing to it. Have you noticed certain purchases quietly triggering upgrades in other areas of your life? Let me know in the comments. I read them, and they often shape what we break down next. And if this video helped you see your spending through a more structural lens, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That support genuinely helps us keep producing clear, calm analysis like this. Until then, this has been Herbert Invest, where we cut through the noise so you don't have to. Thanks for watching.